There's a small layer of actors who are trending not just because of their acting achievements, there's something else that allows them to appear in places unrelated to Hollywood. Sometimes, these actors make good use of this aspect. One such actor is Henry Cavill, who at one point became a notable PC enthusiast, which helped him appear more star-studded. However, it seems like Henry missed the mark a bit by not fully capitalizing on these unique opportunities. Similarly, Ryan Gosling has never been a superstar, his movies rarely break the bank. One could even say that Gosling, at a certain point in his career, became a guarantee of a box office flop, like a scarier version of Margot Robbie. But it's not his fault, that's just the system of our planet. Yet, Ryan managed to survive unlike many other actors who disappeared into career black holes due to fewer failures. Ryan's career took off at the right time, he managed to become one of the most memorable characters of the global web. Even those who don't know much about Ryan as a talented actor have probably seen him somewhere in those pictures often used in response to various questions or events. Gosling is probably one of the leaders here, and he understands it himself, hence he carefully maintains this image, unlike Henry Cavill, who let the situation go and simply became Henry. In general, today it's about Ryan Gosling, who knows how to be a meme and still a decent actor because of his attempts to be more talented. He missed out on many famous roles, and his talents were often treated with suspicion. Ryan decided to become an actor in childhood. At the age of 6, he watched Rambo and was genuinely sympathetic towards Sylvester Stallone's career. His love for Stallone is quite noticeable. But while he was small, it wasn't a match in teeth but a knife of the same kind as John Rambo's that he couldn't find. However, there were plenty of other knives around Gosling. So he collected them and went to school, where he started throwing knives at his classmates. Ryan found it amusing, but for the kids dodging flying knives, it probably wasn't. The actor assures that he didn't have any friends, such a mystery. He was expelled from school after a knife performance. Nobody was interested in the school's John Rambo, so Ryan learned at home. His mother had to leave work so that Ryan wouldn't grow up an idiot. This method of education allowed him to focus on his dream. So he did a lot of contortions, imitating Aguilera and even Justin Timberlake. So the authors often showed more talented children, but he still learned a lot, and it was a great start for his career. When his contract with Mickey Mouse expired, Ryan appeared in various TV shows. He even went to Hercules with Kevin Sorbo and then got his own Hercules. Young Hercules was an attempt to repeat the success of Hercules with Kevin Sorbo. Ryan's series was low budget. Apart from him, there were other unclear actors cast through ads. And it seems like almost no one responded, they took those who called by mistake. Something similar might have happened with Gosling himself, the series instantly flopped. So the ratings plummeted already in the first season. It was closed, after which Gosling promised himself never to act on television and become a real actor. He even appeared in the movie Remember the Titans with Denzel Washington. But the breakthrough for him was the movie Fanatic in 2001. It was a low-budget independent film, most of which was shot guerrilla style. The authors didn't pay anyone. When it was necessary to shoot a scene on the street, they simply pushed Gosling out, and he ran in front of the camera, after which everyone jumped into a car and hid from the police. Fanatic didn't make much money, but it was showered with awards at various festivals. So Gosling woke up famous, and the main thing was that they began to call him a talented young actor with a great future. Somewhere around here, Gosling was offered the lead role in the movie 28 Days Later. It was supposed to be played by Ewan McGregor, but he had a falling out with the director, Danny Boyle. Gosling's refusal to take the role is usually attributed to his busy schedule with other projects. Cillian Murphy was cast instead in 2002. That year, Gosling landed a role in a big studio film, Murder by Numbers, where he met Sandra Bullock and even dated her for a while. There was an episode with her licking him to push the plot forward. The actor found it scary. He suggested this option to Sandra, and she immediately agreed. The film ran into problems after filming. Entire plotlines disappeared as actors associated with them were not reshootable. After such incidents, Murder by Numbers immediately flopped, earning $56 million against a $50 million budget. It's not entirely clear where all that money went, but the film was in development for a long time, then it was edited by many different people who also had to be paid. Sandra, being a top-tier star at the time, took home $15 million. Gosling had already worked for peanuts. After that, the actor went through a couple more independent projects that also failed, but their budgets were meager. This didn't bother him because for such films, the main thing was for someone to notice them, and the authors to get a pat on the back for their pursuit of dreams at a film festival. In 2004, the film that made Gosling recognizable finally happened. Luck was on his side with this film. Spielberg had wanted to make it since the mid-90s when nobody would have remembered to do it earlier. Spielberg was supposed to direct, and the lead male role was to be played by Tom Cruise. However, due to their busy schedules, production schedules were constantly slipping, and they both eventually left the film. Later, George Clooney was picked, but due to his schedule, he couldn't play the lead role either. By then, the director was Nick Cassavetes. Many may remember him from the movie Face/Off, where he was an actor and attentively listened to frightening stories of surgical operations from an incredibly talented nephew. Cassavetes adapted Nicholas Sparks' novel, The Notebook, from the other side. He didn't want to see a handsome actor in the lead role. He assured he was looking for someone ugly and not very well known. In his opinion, Ryan Gosling fit the bill perfectly. At first, Gosling didn't fall in love with Rachel McAdams. She ultimately beat Britney Spears in the audition, which disappointed Ryan, who was acquainted with Britney. McAdams kept telling scary stories about him, which Gosling didn't like. So she also talked a lot about Gosling. When filming started, all their conflicts began to interfere with production. So Cassavetes had to take a day off and have a serious talk with them. After that, they stopped telling each other scary stories and even became friends, including with organisms. But after filming, Gosling even claimed that the success of the film was all due to him, which annoyed McAdams. The Notebook was made for $29 million and grossed $118 million at the box office. It's now considered a cult classic, and both McAdams and Gosling skyrocketed after it. Gosling had an epic failure with a film about Stan, which was actually shot before The Notebook but needed reshoots and other repair work, so the budget inflated to $50 million, but they only managed to earn $10 million. But in 2006, the actor redeemed himself, receiving an Oscar nomination for a small film, Half Nelson, which had a budget of less than $1 million but earned $5 million. Now Gosling was being called very talented without the prefix young. He also performed well at the box office with the film Fracture, where Gosling ran around Anthony Hopkins. The film cost $10 million and grossed $91 million. Instead of going to expensive movies to ask for a lot of money, Ryan locked himself into small independent projects. Here he was nominated for a Golden Globe for the film Lars and the Real Girl. However, it didn't affect the box office. The film sank, as did everything that critics had already praised. But Gosling managed to cover himself with a Valentine's card. It was praised, and it did well at the box office, spending $1 million on it and earning $13 million. Instead of that film, he was supposed to play the lead male role in the film The Lovely Bones, based on the bestseller by Alice Sebold, which hit bookshelves in 2002. Director Peter Jackson really wanted to make the film and said that after King Kong, adapting Sebold's book was the most important project in his career. There was probably something about The Lord of the Rings too, but Peter was forgetful. Jackson chose Ryan for the lead role because he also considered him very talented. But when Gosling started showing his talent even before filming, something went wrong. Ryan felt that his character should look somewhat different in The Lovely Bones, and Peter Jackson's vision didn't concern him much. So he quickly gained weight for the role, completely ignoring the director running around him, saying various unkind words. When Jackson's shouting didn't help, he kicked Gosling out of the film and quickly replaced him with Mark Wahlberg, who wasn't as talented. So he never argued with the director's vision again. Afterwards, probably one of the actor's most famous or even the most famous films happened. Initially, the film was supposed to be directed by Neil Marshall, responsible for films like The Descent and Doomsday. The lead role was set to be taken by Hugh Jackman, but production was delayed due to various creative differences, and in the end, both he and Ryan Gosling were involved. Gosling admitted that he signed on to the film simply because there was something superheroic about it, and he always wanted to play a superhero. However, all the roles of interesting superheroes were already taken by other actors with modest potential, leaving nothing for him. The actor recounted that the film might not have happened, at least not with him in the lead role. When he first met Nicholas Wendigo RFM, who was initially unwell and reluctantly discussed some nonsense, Gosling decided that the director was not at all interested in the film and wanted to withdraw from participation. Although a small budget was allocated for Gosling, which was significantly cut due to Jackman's departure, when the actor drove the director, who was unfamiliar with the city, to the hotel, they started talking, and then music played on the radio, and the roar finally broke through. Thus, the concept with music under which the driver wanders through the city emerged. Ryan added the match to resemble more his favorite actor superhero. In the script, there was much more dialogue between Gosling and Mulligan, but the actors decided to focus mainly on the overall mood of the scenes. Because of this, Carey Mulligan mentioned that she had to spend several hours a day just gloomily looking at Ryan Gosling. After most of Ryan Gosling's character's dialogues were removed from the script, Bryan Cranston, on the contrary, increased the number of his lines since the script did not provide for this. It was assumed that Gosling and Mulligan would say something. Most of the new dialogues were purely improvisational. Drive performed well at the box office and has since become a cult and iconic film, grossing $77 million against a $15 million budget. It was believed that it could have been even more successful, but the trailers misled people too much. They created the impression that the film would be closer to some family racing movie, which led to a lawsuit filed against Drive by a woman who went to see it with her family. However, she couldn't win. In general, it is assumed that this noise and outrage might have slightly hindered the film, but the opposite could also be true. For a long time, there were rumors of a sequel to the film, but in 2016, the director announced that there would be no sequels or prequels to Drive. According to the director, almost all sequels are worse than the original, and he doesn't want anything like that to happen to his Drive. However, since sequels were considered, the answer to the question of the film's ending, I think, is clear. Okay, both Ides of March and Crazy, Stupid, Love performed well at the box office. In Ides of March, Ryan tried not to fade into George Clooney's shadow, and it seemed to work. The actor earned another Golden Globe nomination. Crazy, Stupid, Love also did fairly well at the box office. For this film, he received another nomination. The film grossed $146 million against a $50 million budget. However, after that, there was a streak of failures. First, the film Only God Forgives flopped. They tried to replicate the success of Drive, but nothing worked. Even during filming, they constantly argued, and the film performed poorly at the box office. The Place Beyond the Pines didn't fare well either. Here, Gosling already had an administrative resource in place, trying to push the film through various channels. They still had a common story, similar to Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Their films flopped, but they still had their perks. However, Ryan's most serious failure was with Gangster Squad. It was supposed to be like The Untouchables of our time. Ryan Gosling said he agreed to star in this film because of Sean Penn and his desire to shoot a Thompson submachine gun. Later, he found out that he wouldn't have any scenes with Sean Penn, so he was deeply disappointed. He wanted to drop out of the film, but the studio promised to finance his directorial debut and allocated $2 million for shooting the film How to Catch a Monster. With him, Ryan also failed, and critics tore him apart. As an actor, he never attempted directing again. Gangster Squad only grossed $105 million against a $65 million budget. Another failure was Song to Song, directed by Terrence Malick. The film was shot in 2012, but it was so prolonged that it lost its distributor, and then nobody wanted to distribute it to big screens. The film was released only in 2017, when nobody really cared about it, and it barely made $1 million. At that moment, Ryan met director Denis Villeneuve. He auditioned for the film Prisoners and really wanted the role that eventually went to Jake Gyllenhaal. He bothered the director with calls and even stood under his windows, but Villeneuve still refused him, although he claimed that he really liked Ryan because of this situation. Later, Ryan did get a role in Blade Runner 2049. He could have appeared in The Most Drunk District in the World, but production dragged on, and he had to leave. Tom Hardy replaced him. Hardy wasn't supposed to be that big. He bulked up during the shooting of other films. The actor had some success with the film The Big Short. Everything was fine there, and the film received various awards. It's just that everyone was praised and rewarded except Gosling. Things weren't going very well, but then it's funny that Ryan almost ended up in the movie Beauty and the Beast instead of La La Land. His salvation was the director Damien Chazelle's offer at the very last moment. He immediately turned down the role of the Beast and jumped into La La Land. He was called here due to Miles Teller, who was supposed to play the lead role, but there was drama with the Fantastic Four in distribution, and the director panicked. quickly deciding to change the actor so that this drama wouldn't spill over onto him. Thanks to all these coincidences, Gosling found himself in the same film for the third time. Sam Stone, for his participation, finally received a Golden Globe, though he still doesn't have an Oscar. Although nominations are present, and critics generally love him, so somewhere in the future, this event will come. In the box office, the film grossed $447 million with a budget of $30 million. He worked as an actor here for food, and only under the future percentage. What it was officially is unknown, but it is considered that he managed to earn about $30 million. Ryan could have failed with Gamry and the film agents AL. He was one of the main candidates for the role of Napoleon for a long time. But as usual, the production dragged on, and Ryan fled with great success with La La Land. Ryan took advantage of this specifically. He began to take more money for his participation, but only to act in box office failures. The first of them was The Nice Guys. Initially, they were supposed to turn into a series, and naturally, there were supposed to be other actors in it. But in the series, they couldn't come up with a suitable ending for the first season. As a result, the studio decided to give preference to the full-length film. Ryan Gosling claims that he agreed to star in the film because Russell Crowe and Kim Basinger were there, and he always wanted to work with them. They worked together to make $71 million at the box office with a budget of $50 million. The situation was even worse for Blade Runner 2049. This film did not have all the terrifying problems for which the original film is known. In 2017, Villeneuve quickly found a common language both with Harrison Ford and with Ryan Gosling. Gosling is a big fan of looking into the horizon and remaining silent with significance, which was exactly what was needed for the director. There are only blows from Harrison Ford's fists and some tough stories. For Ryan, this was unexpected. This is well noticeable both on Gosling's face and on Ford's face. The director assured that producers and the film itself were taken seriously. It's great in scale, but they hardly touched Gosling, who was looking into the horizon, practically leaving him untouched. In theaters, the film grossed only $259 million with a budget of $150 million. Unofficially, the film's budget was even bigger, $175 or even $190 million. But the film was warmly received by both critics and audiences, and such failures rarely affect actors' careers too much. Immediately after Blade Runner, he signed up for another Damien Chazelle film, presumably assuming it would be the second La La Land, but then First Man happened. All the necessary ingredients that Gosling loves in a film are present. He again looked somewhere for a long time and received $6.5 million. While working on this film, Gosling probably underwent the most impressive preparation for a role. He even learned to play the voxy and brought its sound into the film, as Neil Armstrong was a big fan of such music. During the production of the film, it was assumed that it would be a future box office hit, with hundreds of different awards for the film, including the plot, actors, and director, but when it hit theaters, the film failed. Although critics responded well to it, the average moviegoer found it too boring. The authors overdid it with authenticity. They made only 10% more than was really necessary. So, all the actors had to suffer on the set, trying to fit in with the equipment. The film managed to gather only $105 million at the box office with a budget of $60 million. It received praise from critics and good ratings. This is certainly good, but Gosling got his third consecutive major box office failure. And if you remember that Terrence Malick's film also made it to theaters only in 2017, then it turns out to be the fourth failure in a row. But COVID helped Ryan, streaming platform soared, and Gosling headed to Netflix to earn a lot of money. He received $20 million for The Gray Man, which is a record for him without considering various percentage deductions. The film became a hit on the streaming service, but perhaps it didn't meet all the expectations, as even before its release, a whole universe was announced, including prequels, sequels, and spin-offs. But they're not here yet. The sequel script is being written, but apparently, it's turning out to be too powerful, probably as cool as the first part. Gosling's latest film at the moment is Barbie. For his participation, he received $12 million and an Oscar nomination. It's the highest-grossing film of 2023 for Ryan, who is usually praised for it with all his might. Sometimes there are even threats to give him a separate film about his character. Barbie grossed $1.446 billion with a budget of $145 million. Now the actor has become a very big star again. Soon his film Cascade will be released. It's a comedy action movie that critics have already seen and liked. The film will hit theaters only in May, with a budget of $100 million. Whether Barbie or Ryan was accidental in becoming a box office actor is unclear. In his career, Gosling has had a couple of moments when he could start worrying about his future, but although he has never been particularly box office, and he has had quite a few failures, he has become a meme, which is currently very helpful. He is remembered everywhere. He's only 43, and there's still plenty of time for a superstar. Now he doesn't even have to think about joining the ranks of retired action heroes. If Cascade goes well, he will definitely be transferred to the superstar ranks. They were supposed to play the parents of George Clooney's character. He has already stated that he is very pleased with his new mother. But he imagined the father differently. In general, Ryan can only be praised. Unlike Chris, who left Netflix entirely and stars in films that go to theaters, which is much riskier for a career. But Ryan Gosling is bold enough.